Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Wade into Wealth. I'm Chuck Wade. My brother Ethan is here. Wherever you're joining us from today, whether it's via podcast, wherever they're listened to, on YouTube, and via the Wade into Wealth channel, we're happy you're here with us and glad to be sharing this journey to financial wellness with you. So this week, we're going to talk about a topic that impacts a lot of folks, impacts a lot of our clients specifically, and a large section of the United States population.
If you're 65 and over.
Yeah. And it's not great news.
No.
It's not great news. That is that Medicare Part B premiums are going up. And
so what is Part B?
Yeah.
To start.
That's a good question. So
it's your doctor's visits, outpatient services, any medical equipment that you need. Medicare Part A is hospitalization. Yep. Medicare Part B, think of anything that you're going to your doctor's offices for, essentially.
Yes, and for any medication that is administered at a doctor's office as well. That'll come into play.
Very important part
later
of this. Yeah.
As we're going through this. But Medicare Part B premiums are going up. If you're 65 or older, you've been paying for Medicare Part B premium or will be in the very near future. And it's going up by a good chunk, almost 15% in terms of the increase. Right. So let's expand on this a little more. The standard premium for most retired workers is a pretty big increase this year.
Yeah. It's going to be up to maybe a little more than $170 a month.
That's a good chunk. So that is, if you
up
do the
from,
math,
I think, $150 or so. I know it's more than $20 per month increase that your standard Social Security recipient or Medicare recipient will be paying.
Yeah, and you might think of it, well, it's $20 a month. It's not a huge deal. But in a lot of cases, folks are on a fixed income. But also looking at it, I think it's really important that with investments or finance, we use percentages instead of dollar amounts. And a 14.5% jump is not insignificant by any means.
No, especially because I think last year it was capped and they weren't able to increase it at all. And so seeing that be almost 15% now is a fairly meaningful increase for those people paying for that Medicare Part B coverage.
Yeah, and this is something that's happening across the board. Inflation's been low for a long time. It's been low for a while, and I think that this is just one more example of inflation really catching up with things. If you look at the cost of anything, meat, gas, and anything.
So let's take inflation is kind of a jar. I mean, we throw it around, and a lot of people know what it is, but inflation is the fact that your prices for goods and services that you pay on average are increasing annually. And for the better part of the recent past, that's been very muted until now.
And it's often tied to interest rates too. Interest rates will have a fairly large impact in some cases on inflation. It's the value of what your dollar can buy and how that changes over time. You have a dollar, and for a while now, that same dollar has been able to purchase the same thing in many cases over a period of years. That's changing now. And there's a lot of reasons why. We can go on and on about this, but let's get back to Medicare.
Let's do it.
Why is it going up so much?
Well, I think the biggest thing, and the number one sticking point is they're saying half of this increase is due to contingency reserves, meaning
that's a jargon term.
Yeah, there is a new Alzheimer's drug. Who's it from? I think it's from Biogen. I think. I could be wrong.
It's from someone.
That's what it's from.
And it's not cheap.
It's supposed to, it's not going to prevent it, but hopefully maybe help slow down the trajectory to getting to dementia. And it's a little more than $50,000 a year is the price of that drug as it stands today. Now, Medicare is looking at that and saying, for folks who have Alzheimer's, if we're going to have to foot that bill, which is a medication that's done inside of a doctor's office.
And that's where Part B comes in.
Correct.
Because it's provided at a doctor's office.
You're going to have to raise that expense to everybody. So even if you don't have Alzheimer's or you don't have a history of it in your family tree, everyone who's paying for Medicare Part B, if the price of that drug stays more than $50,000 a year, is going to have to continue to foot that bill for anyone else who would be receiving that treatment.
Right, because if 100 people are using that throughout the country, that's what, $5.5 million. That's a large expense.
It's a lot of money.
So what they're doing is they're building up reserves, and how that plays out remains to be seen, but that's happening and will be going into effect.
And that's just part of it. The other part is obviously rising costs.
Sure.
Healthcare capacity and utilization within the system. I mean, we have had a pandemic for the past, the better part of 2 years now at this point, and that has strained the healthcare system. And so you've got, that probably makes up the first 50%, and then you've got that new Alzheimer's medication that pretty much picks up the rest of it.
Yeah, and the fact is that the amount of folks that are 65 and older, that number grows every year. As people are able to remain living for longer periods of time due to advances in medicine and science.
And you've got the baby boomers.
You got the baby boomers. So you have the largest generation that is entering into that demographic. So there is more that needs to be covered, and the costs of coverage are increasing.
It's not going down.
And it's not going to at any point in the near future.
Right.
So it's not all doom and gloom here today, though. We wanted to cover Medicare Part B because that is important. That's something that will impact you, that will hit your wallet if you're 65 or older. But if you are collecting Social Security, you are getting a raise this year.
Right. The largest one in, I think,
31 years.
Yeah, more than 3 decades. So that, often heard of COLA, cost of living adjustment. And this year, I think for 2022, the COLA, the cost of living adjustment, is just under 6%. I think it's 5.9.
Yes.
Which is the meaningful increase, especially because a lot of Social Security recipients over the past handful of years, there's been a couple of years where the cost of living adjustment has been 0.
Right.
So now we're going to go, I think the average retiree collecting Social Security benefits receives maybe a little more than $1,565 a month. There you go. That's going to go up to, $1,657?
Accurate.
A little more than $90 a month of an increase. So that's nice. But that doesn't mean you just get extra money. That happening because your prices are going up.
Right. And that also means that's covering your increase in Medicare Part B.
Yeah, so your Medicare Part, you've got a little more than $90 a month increase that you're going to get from the largest cost of living adjustment in more than 3 decades. Of that $90, though, $20 is being allocated right off the bat to Medicare Part B.
So it's a $50 increase. It's a $600 increase over the course of a year.
Yep. I think $70 a month, if I can correct you on that.
Okay. Sure. So it's a little more than $600 a year.
Yep.
You are correct, sir. So yeah, there is an increase in Social Security. This is the first time I've looked at this and thought, oh, it's actually an increase versus, 1.5 or less.
Well, yeah. I mean, this year, 2021, years, right? Cost of living adjustment was 1.3%. 5.9. That's 350% more than what the increase was in just this year.
Yeah. So what do you do? What do we do about this? Inflation is something that is real, that is going to be, I think it's going to be here for a while, not predicting with any certainty this is going to last for a long period of time, but we're due for periods of inflation. If you add that in with the fact that the supply chain is just a mess, as we've talked about before, that is creating an increase in the cost of goods.
Sure. I mean, everything in business, being a microeconomics tutor at the College of Brockport, when I was there, everything in business comes down to the supply and demand curve. And when demand is the same or rising, but supply is contracting, you're going to have higher prices. And supply chain hasn't been fixed, not going to be fixed anytime soon. Demand is still here. Less supply means higher prices. That's going to be here for a while. I don't think we probably don't have to have an argument about that.
No.
I think we're on the same page. But what do? Social Security was created to help folks in retirement live slightly above the poverty line. It's the whole reason for why it was created.
Yep.
Folks were, before Social Security was established, they would retire, they would live out, and what happened is our elderly population ended up falling into poverty because they ended up running out of money.
Yep.
And so government thought, well, create Social Security so folks can live slightly above the poverty line. So if you're reliant only on Social Security, these changes, these meaningful increases for your Medicare Part B, for inflation, for your bills going up, has a significant impact on your fixed budget that you have. So now's the time to act. If you're not retired, if you're younger, or if retirement's in the near future, it puts the onus on you to really make sure you have more money saved. to have more money in your retirement accounts that you'll be able to draw on, but also have the potential for that to grow over time so that you can not only keep pace with inflation, but hopefully grow above and beyond that so that you're maintaining the purchasing power with your assets.
And looking to also continue to, if you have a health savings account, make deposits into that, make contributions into that, because these are real. I was having a conversation with a couple of clients last week. They're in excellent shape in terms of their investments. And they said, we have a little extra money. What should we do with it? And we came to the conclusion that it made more sense for them to fund an HSA than it did for them to be putting more into an investment account right now, because they're getting older and there's going to be a period where they're looking for more healthcare coverage. So, you know, these are things we need to be thinking about. You don't want the onus on someone else, be that the government, be that someone else, anyone, to provide for yourself. So whether that is putting money into a retirement account, into a health savings account, into a bank savings account, that is something that should always be a focus. And it's not as much reliance on Social Security alone. We don't see that as much here, but it is a very real thing. Absolutely. Throughout the United States and the country, there are a large
a majority of our population
that are relying on
that
Social
solely.
Security, right? And so this is something that, you know, as you're getting older and going along, we need to be cognizant of,
right?
Because it's not going to get cheaper.
No,
it's not going to get cheaper.
I don't know about you. I can probably speak for our clients where we don't want a retirement that you live slightly above the poverty line.
No, nor do you want a retirement that is dependent on external factors more than it is on internal factors.
Of someone else. Right.
You want to be in control. You want to be the one driving. I know that when I am driving, Liz prefers to be the one driving because
me too.
I tend to not be the best driver in the world in some cases.
Well, that's okay.
So that's it this week. Medicare Part B premiums going up, but Social Security is going up as well. So it's not all doom and gloom. Here, anything to add?
No.
Okay.
No, I think that's
it. I think we covered it. Well, we'll be back next week. And as always, thanks for being with us. Catch you next time on Wade into Wealth.